My name is Ben, and I'm a progressive liberal who lives in LA. I'm gay, married, an activist, and a musician from the tiny farm town of St. Ansgar, Iowa. And although I can't move home, I am going home. So I arrived home to North Iowa just in time to head to Grafton, population 252, for their annual summer celebration, Turkey Days. Turkey Days is a time when the community comes together to reconnect, and the festivities always begin with a parade. This is Tim and his wife Tammy Charlson. They own the town's auto shop, Charlson Body Repair, and each year they drive their family's restored classic cars in the parade, which unfortunately was sidelined this year by an unexpected thunderstorm, forcing everyone to flee inside the town's community center for cover. But once inside, people made the best of the situation, as Iowans tend to do, and the community got to serving their famous butter-basted turkey sandwiches and visited while they ate. After the storm had cleared, we headed back to Charlson Body Repair to head out for Charlson's annual classic car cruise, which, in spite of the storm, was still well attended. Travis Charlson, Tim's son, graduated from my high school and had recently moved home to work for the local newspaper. Travis was my director of photography on this project, and by the end of the week, we'd become friends. He invited me to ride with him in the car cruise, where we drove through country roads and stopped at different area bars to hang out over a beer. After the cruise was over, we returned to Charlson Body Repair to close out the evening, where Travis and his bandmate played music for the family's friends. The next day, the Charlsons welcomed me into their home, where we got to sit down together and talk.
Well, I'm Tim Charlson, born and raised in Worth County, been here forever. We moved as a family to this house in 1997, I believe. Got married in 1992 and started our family here.
I'm Tammy Charlson, and I grew up here in the same area. Graduated from Northwood, same school that Tim graduated with. We were in school together. We've been married for over 25 years, and same employer for 30 years, probably. Yeah, going on 30 years. So I'm in the medical field here with Mercy One in Mason City.
I'm Tianna Charlson, and I'm going to be a junior in the fall at St. Ansgar. And I'm also involved in Golden Banner 4-H, and I'm also in St. Ansgar FFA.
You have an auto body shop here. As a business owner in town, how do you feel commerce or the economy has been?
Well, it's a small community, so, you have your local businesses, and some of them struggle, and some have gone by the wayside. Just like you say, people move away from the small communities to find jobs, so it is hard to keep some of the small businesses open, but for me it's worked out very well. I've been in business at this location 26 years and been doing it a long time, and I provide a service that people really need, so I'm kind of fortunate that way. Whereas like local grocery stores and some of that stuff, people go to the big box stores and try to save some money, and so it's sometimes that's a challenge for businesses.
I do think it was probably the Walmart in Mason that was probably the bigger change. And yeah, when we were younger, there were a lot of smaller businesses, and just in Northwood even, you know, the cafe that you would go to, the dime store uptown, things like that. And now all those places are gone. There's a couple specialty shops left, and restaurants and breweries are big now. And there's a brewery there, but I think the online shopping and being able to receive the same item versus going to the small local grocery store and paying a little more for it, or ordering it bulk from a Costco or a Sam's Club or a Walmart type of situation has changed those opportunities in small business. it has to be about survival and keeping people in this area as well. So, a family of 4 kids, or, they can go to the grocery store and spend $100. They're going to go wherever they can get the biggest bang for their buck. So there's positives and negatives. But then it also decreases the opportunity for small businesses too, and keeping people employed in the area. It's hard for them to compete with the wages and keeping, people employed as well. I know it's a struggle in this area. If you just drive down the Mason City, you'll see the signs in all the places there too. There's not enough bodies for the jobs in the area as well. So it's kind of a problem right now, I think.
So there's more jobs available than people to fill the jobs.
Correct. Everybody thinks that the unemployment rate being so high is a good thing, but that's not necessarily so, I think, for this area, because you have to be more competitive to bring people in, and we have businesses here that are striving to improve and grow, and we don't have enough bodies to fill positions to have that happen. So then you worry about them picking up and leaving too, and leaving people that are employed there without jobs, because it has happened a few places.
How do small communities get people to come and live or work here? Has there been any talk about that in town?
Yeah, I think there has been a lot of talk in St. Ansgar. I hear a lot of it, and kids graduate from school and they move on and they don't come back. But I know there's a lot of families from St. Ansgar that are coming back. Their kids are coming back to the small town and starting up businesses or working locally. So, St. Ansgar, I think, has done a great job on trying to bring industry to the area and provide a good wage that a family can afford to stay here. So I think they do a great job trying to keep their kids here. It's great to have kids go get a big education and college education, but it's also great to have them come back here and help your community thrive,
Yeah.
And I think some of the communities are offering tax breaks for people who come back and build businesses. I know, I think it was Northwood that offered an incentive. They had some lots that were empty. You could buy the lot for $1 if you came and built a home and moved and relocated to that community. So there are things that they're trying to do to bring people back, but it's kind of a struggle, I think. I think some people that I've spoke to that have moved back, they're back to have families and raise them in this area like they were. They've been out there and they've lived other places and realized that if you're going to have a family, that this is the place to be. If to your values and the safer living and maybe even a little bit slower paced type of living style, that they want to raise a family in it.
You mentioned values. What are the values that you find this community holds?
I think it's probably more of a Christian-based, family-based communities that you're, like we belong to a church too, and so you have a church family that's supportive. I just think that, other people too talk about being other places and not even knowing your neighbor. Well, here, when something happens, or a cancer diagnosis or a sudden death in a farmer, or people come together, they'll take crops out, they'll hold a fundraiser to help a family that had, and there's just been some lately. There was a newborn baby that had some health issues and they have some big expenses, so the community will rally and come together, and people are so generous and donate and help and those kind of things too. So to be in a larger community and have something like that happen and have no support and not know your neighbors is very different than coming to somewhere like here and
where you know everybody.
And they'll step forward and help you out.
All the families know each other. Like, you could ask anybody, like, whose farm is that down there, or whose land is that, and everybody's going to know whose that is. So I think it's just a history of knowing each other and also just being in a small town and interacting with everybody every day, which just creates a more friendly environment for, like, kids like me to grow up in. You work in medicine. Mm-hmm.
Do you mind speaking at all about how the medical field has changed over the last 10, 15 years?
Sure. Astronomically, actually.
Okay.
I started out in a family medicine office. There again, too, the providers were self-based. They weren't owned by anybody. You don't have a private practice it's very rare to have a private practice now, where back then all the practices were private. So there was more competition. I think medical care was more affordable because they did have to compete, for the patients type of a situation. Then the evolution of the hospital coming in and buying out the clinics and growing into a bigger entity rather than having the hospital separate and the clinic separate. So Mercy came in and started buying out the clinics, so to be within that process too, and all the changes and the scariness, I guess you'd say, because having private benefits versus a big unit taking you on, and all the benefit changes, and the physicians not necessarily wanting to be owned by somebody, having their own practice there. So all of the providers that I worked for at the time probably were a little resistant on that, but knowing the changes coming ahead and the regulations being harder, somebody else to manage that versus having a private practice and managing that yourself, or hiring somebody to come in and be able to stay on top of that for you. So pretty much everybody in the area eventually became a part of Mercy as a clinic, so that was a big change for the family practice physicians.
If you were to apply that same idea to what we were talking about with the stores, to medicine, like, it seems like consolidation is something that's been happening a lot.
Yep.
My understanding is that that's also happening to some extent with farming. What's the changes in farming that's happened?
I think when we first married, we owned a farrow to finish operation with animals, so that was part of our income coming in at that time, and that is not even possible unless you're going to build a facility that owns thousands and thousands of head, because we actually were kind of in on the tail end of that at the time. We got out just in time before the market dropped out, but you can't be a small farmer when it comes to livestock anymore, or even grain types of situations, and Tim has more knowledge on it obviously than I do. But
Investors are buying land, and so that's why a lot of times land prices are way high. So they're buying dirt rather than buying stocks and different things. They claim they can make pretty good money renting out the land and owning the land versus buying stocks and stuff on the market. So a lot of investors have switched to buying ground, and then they'll rent it out to basically the highest bidder. And it used to be a lot of small families, and you can go back to and I'm not blaming it on the kids or anything, but a lot of times there isn't room in the family operation to have a whole family surviving off of a small family farm, so they have to seek employment and stuff elsewhere. So a lot of the small farms have they've forced to get a job in town, or a lot of them have moved away, and then some farmers are able to with the technology nowadays and the size of the equipment, you can farm so much ground in a day, where 30 years ago it would take you a week to do what you can do in about a day and a half now. So yeah, technology is really advanced in farming, and we're small farmers, and the technology that we use is old, but I plant with an iPad, and it maps all my passes in the field, and I can go look exactly what I planted where and how many seeds I put in. So
Wow.
Technology is really there. I sit in a tractor and do this because we have auto steer, and that keeps your rows nice and straight, so you're not overplanting, and so that streamlines your cost. It helps you so you're not wasting. They can map fields now where one part of the field may be just really, really rich in nutrients and the other parts isn't, so you can map your chemicals and your fertilizer, so you put what the ground needs. And so advancements like that have made farming, it's not really a corporation where one person owns different farmers. It's just some of the small farmers are gone, and not as many young people are probably getting into farming, so the farmers are actually able to rent more ground and get more done in a day because of the size of the equipment, and market price is still a struggle, because a farmer, he raises the crops, he raises the pigs, and then when he goes to sell it, he can't say that, okay, I want this much for my product. He's got to, someone else sets the price, where the farmer doesn't get to set a price on what he's selling. So that's a struggle. And markets fluctuate so much nowadays, and it seems like, one little thing happens and then the market crashes.
There's a lot more. You have to be an agronomist. You have to be, there's a lot more to it than what used to be.
Yeah.
I think you have to really have a high knowledge base in so many different areas to survive in farming now than back in the day where you just went out and you farmed the land, and now it's very.
It's
with
tough.
the advancement, it's you need to know what chemical you're going to put on with what seed and when and where, and with those advancements it's become.
So it's a super technical
job
at this
really
point.
is.
Yeah,
it really is, and
yeah.
people I don't think realize what all it entails. But again, like you spoke of with the technology increasing, there's benefits to it, and just like I didn't touch on that in the medical field either. The technology is there. Your care is, the things that they can do now are, it's incredible. It really, really is. So I think there's positives to the advancements, but there are also some negatives to it too.
Yeah. So just so I understand, you're saying like investors will buy land and then they rent it to other people to farm is the idea?
Yeah.
And so now it's less small farmers and more like large operations.
Yeah.
But they're still owned locally.
Yeah.
But they're renting the land.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's been a shift because it used to be that you would farm the land that you owned.
Right.
And you would have a smaller operation.
Right.
And now it's fewer people, bigger operations on land that they might be renting.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of farmers rent ground.
Well, the land prices because of this happening. The land prices are not affordable for if you would want to.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do like a startup farm, it would be too difficult.
You could not, as a single person, go out and say, "I'm going to be a farmer." There is no way, unless you've got a very large fortune, to get into farming. It has to be a family business that you're working into with your grandpa or your father or something like that. Otherwise, I just don't see how anybody could just come back and say, "I'm going to farm today." It's a job that is passed down from generation to generation.
Because you have to have the capital.
You got to have the capital and the know-how, and you got to have the land, because I can't just go, "Well, I'm going to go farm that today."
Right.
Somebody else owns it.
Well, you even struggled moving back here from Ames how many years ago, because that's what you came back and wanted to do.
And that's how I started my body shop business, is because I needed another income, because it was hard to get into farming, and I was fortunate enough to have a father and a family that was in the farming all their life, so I was able to work with my family, and that's how we farm today. And we're a very small operation compared to, some of our neighbors have larger equipment, and it's worked out for them. So
you had to sort of diversify your income because you couldn't scale to a large operation.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of the small family farms will say, you used to have cows, you had pigs, you had livestock, and you did grain, and a lot of the grain you used was fed on your farm to take care of your animals. But like we were talking, there's a lot of rules and regulations now with even raising livestock that a small guy has a hard time, because there's no buying stations to sell your pigs, or you have to have a contract with a major corporation in order to even sell your hogs, and they basically tell you when you can sell your livestock. So that makes it a little more challenging for small families.
Yeah.
So again more to the corporation control.
A little more corporation control on the livestock end, but as far as the grain farming, no, it's not like you own a fleet of farms. You know, it's still individually family owned, or a family business. So yeah, a lot of them hire, help. They hire people to run tractors for them, and a hired man, and so there is some job opportunities there, but it's, like I said, it's family based.
Can you tell me a little bit about your involvement with Turkey Days and why you choose to do the car ride? And
Well, it's a small town event, and everybody has every small town has their own little event, and Turkey Days has been going for 49 years now. I've been a business owner in that town for 26, so I basically know a lot of people. I've serviced a lot of vehicles and helped out in that situation, and it's, everybody needs excitement, or everybody needs something new. And to celebrate our 25th anniversary as a business owner in the town, we decided to do a car show. We've done those in the past, and then we decided to do a car cruise, and that it went over really well last year, and people all year long were asking me if I was going to do it again, and I was kind of told that I was. So, here again, I wanted to bring people to our small community, and I've had a lot of positive comments, and people telling me that they had a great time, and when we're doing it next year, So, yeah, like I say, I want to promote our local business, and it's kind of for me, it's a customer appreciation, because there's a lot of those cars that show up that I've had my hands on. I fixed this, or maybe not their special cruising car, but I've fixed their deer hit, or their scratch, or their blunder, or whatever, and they keep coming back to me, and so it's kind of a customer appreciation also. So, and it's a good time. So.
And I think what happened yesterday kind of speaks for itself, just kind of what we've touched base on here too. The weather was not cooperating very well, and we were like, okay, is it still going to happen? Is it going to happen? But the show, people still came. There was, 40 cars, 75 people. It's still, again, you see the support. You see people coming together and coming out and doing things in spite of the negative weather and the storms in the area that were happening that day. So it kind of speaks for what we've just been talking about.
yeah, cool. Well, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Pretty easy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Very.
Hi, Charlsons. How's it going?
Good.
Good.
We haven't seen each other for a year. It's good to see y'all again.
Yeah, you too.
How has life changed for you all since I saw you last year? I know a lot's happened in 2020. How has that shown up in your lives?
Who wants to go first? The pandemic, I guess, would probably be the biggest effect on everything. Yeah, it's slowed things down. Tianna got out of school in March. Yeah. So we were quarantined in March for, what was it, a month? Our lives as far as work goes, and we were essential, so Tim and I still stayed going to work and things like that. So, but I think the pandemic's probably the biggest change that we've had.
Yeah, and then we actually did online schooling for a little bit, so that was kind of interesting. It went pretty good, and I was thankful that that my German class was online before that. So it was kind of easier for me to adapt to the online classes since I've already had that experience with the German class. And with all my extra free time, I've just been working with the horses here on the farm, and I've actually started working at Western Pleasure Show Stable, which is about 50 horses, and I help take care of them. So I just kind of work at the stable hand, and then occasionally I'll ride some young colts for her.
That's so cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about how the school system adjusted to the pandemic? Was it an easy enough transition? Are people how do they feel about having to do school online?
I feel for our school it went pretty easily because we have school laptops, so each kid we knew had a laptop, because I know some schools don't do the school laptops, so they might have struggled with having kids getting the technology that they needed. So we already had our laptops beforehand, and we knew how to use them. So I felt it was a pretty easy transition. It was actually kind of sudden for us, because we were actually talking about the pandemic in history class the weekend before everything.
Wow.
The day before everything got shut down. So it was on Friday, and we're talking history class, and our history teacher's like, we don't know what's going to happen, but you guys are very least going to come back on Monday, so you can come get your stuff. So then, like a couple hours before school on Monday, they were like, you guys aren't coming in, you guys are staying home. It was kind of sudden, because we thought we'd at least be able to say goodbye to everybody on Monday. So it was kind of, yeah, so it was just, and then about a week later, we started up with the online classes, and that went like pretty good. And I think our school actually had a pretty high participation rate. I know some schools struggled with that, so that was also fun to see it, just everybody being responsible for their own work.
Did you ever get to get your stuff?
Yeah, they had certain times where we could come in, and you had to come in by yourself or with parents, and no extra people, no socializing, just go to your locker and get out sort of situation.
That was really surreal. I went with her that day. It was just like the reality of what was actually happening really hit at that point, where the empty hallways and you're clearing everything out, not knowing what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I bet. How are people feeling for the fall? What's the plan? Is there one?
I don't think there really is one at this point. I know we've been filling out a lot of surveys as parents as far as what technology we have and how our feelings are about the safety of our children going back to school. We were able to voice any concerns that we had in those surveys. I also teach a class at the Y, and one of my participants is Charles City athletic director, and I know that school is talking about so many kids coming on a certain two days a week, and then they're online learning 2 days a week, and then Wednesday would actually be a shutdown for disinfecting the school every week. So they're splitting the kids up is what they're talking about doing, so that all the kids aren't in the school building at the same time. So I think some of those things are just still in the works at this time. Everything's still rather unknown.
That's an interesting strategy. I haven't heard of that one. Tianna, this is your senior year coming up? Is that right?
Yes.
How do you feel about that? I know senior years are a big deal. You know, how does it feel to have it be happening kind of in the midst of all this?
I'm not like too concerned about getting that, like, high school movie senior year, because I still know my friends, and with like the technology we're still able to connect, so I don't think it will matter so much as where we are, as long as we're getting the learning and preparing for college. We're still able to be social distancing and hanging out, and just being safe and responsible is probably our biggest priority right now.
And it seems like everybody's committed to that, like socially distanced safety. Are you finding that, I know Tim and Tammy, you're maybe more in touch with the public. Are you finding that in general with the public as well? Or are there different ideas as to, what is safety, what isn't amongst the public?
I think it varies from person to person, honestly.
Age groups.
In different age groups, well, and different people too. Like for me, working in the healthcare field, I'm seeing the effects of it firsthand, and knowing how serious it can get. So I see that serious end of it, but then you'll go out and, we were invited to a party on the 4th of July, and there was basically no social distancing going on there. So that one group is really careful and maybe another group isn't so much. So I don't know if it just varies on the background and your connection of what you do and what you see. We've been fortunate enough, there's been low counts of COVID here in Mitchell County, North County, but it's currently on the rise. Saragordo County, which is where Mercy One is, where I work, is now it's just hitting there now, really. So we're seeing it in a few nursing homes, and the numbers are climbing pretty high rates every day. So we're seeing an impact at the hospital. We have more inpatient admits with COVID now. So we're getting some of it at this time. It's taken that long to kind of reach this point. As they started opening things up, it's starting to spread. So it changes and it varies. You'll go into a store and might see only a few people wearing masks prior, but now that it's hitting harder, you've seen more people wearing masks and maybe taking it a little more seriously. Now the numbers are climbing.
Is that the same for you, Tim, with people coming into the shop?
Yeah, I have very few people that will come in with a mask, but some do. And I guess, I've seen it where there's been some older people come in with masks. I've seen some delivery guys have masks on. So certain things like that, but we're here in such a small rural community that our numbers, like Tammy said, have been so terribly low that it hasn't affected our lifestyle maybe as much as a bigger town. Doesn't mean that it's not important to us, but this doesn't seem to show up as much here in rural Iowa.
Yeah. Tammy, is the Mercy One system preparing for a lot of cases? Is there sort of like a movement to get more PPE or prepare more hospital beds? Is there any anticipation of that?
Yeah, they've been doing that since day one. So they've actually been preparing for it. They've created more CCU beds, gotten more ventilators on hand, things like that. They've converted floors over to COVID floors that were maybe a post-surgical floor, types of things, making more beds available and ready for when it does come. So they have been planning continually throughout this since we've started with it. So unfortunately at first, when they shut things down, people didn't come for regular visits. It really hit us impacted financially because people weren't coming. And then when the governor shut things down, then there was nothing preventive being done or elective surgeries and things like that to save the PPE and to keep people out of the public. So those impacts have affected us again from day one. I've been taking 2 days without pay for the last 2 days of pay period without pay since probably the first part of April.
Wow.
And we furloughed probably 4 or 5 positions from my clinic alone. So it has impacted us financially. I know we just got a memo at work and they will be making some actual cuts of positions to try to make up for the financial impact of this at this time. So it's kind of, as we're seeing this influx come in, it'll be interesting to see how we handle it all because of the financial area of it and having enough for patient coverage and things like that. So there's a lot of decisions that are being made on a higher level that are pretty serious and impacting at this time.
Yeah. You and I talked last year about, sort of consolidation of the healthcare system. Are you finding that because, Mercy One is now a network of care providers, that maybe that helps because there's like a standard and like a shared protocol for COVID, whereas if it had been individual providers, you may have had inconsistencies in the way things were handled?
Possibly, yes, because, and then I know like some of the other hospitals were hit a lot earlier than we were, so then some of those people that were furloughed were able to go to those higher impact hit areas and work and help. So I think the networking has made us stronger and probably more decisions made in larger groups and knowing how it's going to affect everybody in the state rather than, and even actually the nation. We have other hospitals that belong to our entity that are in other states too. So yes, I do think that helped us.
I want to ask you about Turkey Days. It's this episode will be airing on the day that I believe Turkey Days was supposed to take place. It was supposed to be next Saturday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
But it's not happening, right? Or is it?
Well, there's a form of it.
Okay.
there is pretty much everything with Turkey Days was canceled. We are going to have the car cruise. We feel pretty safe with that. People in their own vehicles. Car cruises have happened quite a bit. The Gobbler's Roost is going to have a small barbecue out on the street, and then the band Bad Habits is going to play later, and they're going to try to set up chairs and be responsible and bring your own folding chairs or lawn chairs, and hopefully they can enjoy some part of Turkey Days anyway.
Okay, cool. Because I think I had talked to somebody else who had said it was canceled. So it's nice to know that maybe there's an effort for the community to come together, but in a safe way.
Yep.
Have you, in talking to the people that normally participate in the car cruise, did it feel a little bit tenuous, or like were people worried about it going into it, or just everybody knew because we're in our own cars, we're going to be safe?
I feel that's kind of the way everybody thought. I've had a lot of people approach me wondering if we're going to do it, wondering if we're going to postpone it. But being in your cars, you're not really close to each other. So then there has been a lot of car cruises going along. I know they've canceled a lot of car shows so that people aren't shoulder to shoulder looking at vehicles and visiting that way. But the actual cruises have taken place. So hopefully that'll go without a hitch.
Yeah. Are you still stopping at bars, or you've taken that off of it because of the social distancing, or?
Yep, we have. We are going to try a couple of different things this year. We're going to go to a couple different farmers, places that have nice shops, and just stop there for, some water and beverages and maybe popcorn or cookies somewhere or two, and just have it all outdoor is what we plan on. So hopefully that'll all work out.
Yeah. Last year we talked about agriculture and, the ways that agriculture has changed. And I know that the beginning of the pandemic was very difficult for farmers. A lot of farmers were not able to sell. There was sort of like disruptions in the food supply system. I know that you have like maybe a smaller level farm, right? Did that disrupt your operations, or how were you affected?
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't been able to market our grain because the prices are so low that, if you do market your grain, you're going to take such a hit on it. But, a lot of times you have to, because you have to have storage for the coming crop here, in hopefully October, November, when we get everything put in. You got to have storage for that. So you can't have 2 years worth of crop on hand, and, you got to pay your bills too. So a lot of guys are having to just get rid of their corn and kind of cut their losses and hope things turn around for next year. But, it just doesn't seem like prices have rebounded at all. And with everything going on, just doesn't look very promising for the future of farming right now, I should say.
Are there conversations about how to address that? Or is the government giving money to farmers? Like how are we as a nation responding to that?
The government has some programs in place that are, they're helping with a few things. There's some government, maybe not grants, but you get kind of some payments on some of your production. So that a little bit helps. But, farmers would rather not have a government program. They'd rather just be able to market their grain and not count on that.
Yeah.
Most people just, if they just let us market their grain, it's something that we have no control on price. We produce all this grain, but yet we can't say, okay, we want so much a bushel. We pretty much get told what we're going to get. So that gets to be a little frustrating. And yeah, there are marketing strategies and stuff like that. There's people that help with that.
We talked about that last year, but I don't know if I fully understand that. Why is it that farmers can't set their own price? How did that come to be?
Well, I guess, like the elevators and the Board of Trade and stuff like that, they're kind of the ones that set the grain price. But, one farmer is not able to go, well, I want $5 a bushel when the market's only $3 a bushel. You know, it just kind of, they set the price, and you know, it's like going to Walmart or whatever. You can't tell them what you're going to pay. Here's what it is, and you either pay it or you don't. So it's kind of the same thing.
Mm. So the idea is to keep it sort of fair and competitive amongst people, so they're not trying to outbid one another?
I suppose, yeah. It's kind of complicated. I don't know who exactly sets all the pricing or why, but that's just kind of the way it is.
And so that's been difficult for farmers in this moment, because you can't make up the money lost because the price is set. So it's not
Right.
like you could raise the price to try and gain back a little bit of that money.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
How does that feel on sort of like a morale point of view? I imagine you spend all this time and energy like creating a crop, and then to have to sort of like lose it or destroy it. Like, is that difficult just from like, is it hard for farmers from like a psychological or emotional point of view to like have this take place?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. It's very, very trying because, you know, we can't control the weather. We can't control, you know, how our corn grows, how our beans grow. You can't control your yields. You can do your best, kind of take it from the year's past experience. You know, certain varieties do great on different types of soil. So you kind of, I don't know, you got to be able to manage, and you got to be able to make some decisions on marketing, and it's kind of a huge gambling, but it's just, you know, kind of a way of life. You hopefully next year you bounce back and things will turn around, and you just got to kind of play it smart.
I suppose that farmers have to sort of be very hopeful people, because there's always this chance, I guess, there's a certain amount of risk, right? Because what you're saying is you can never control certain variables. So you kind of create your crop with the hope or anticipation that you'll be able to sell it. And so that must create a certain level of like resilience amongst farmers, because you just never know, right? So you kind of have to roll with it.
Yeah, you kind of have to roll with it. Yep. I don't know why we put up with it or do it, but I guess it's in our blood.
I think it's in the blood, and I think the family has a lot to do
Family,
with it.
yeah.
You know, farming the land, like your farm has been in the family for 150 years, so it's just something that connects you to who you are and your background and your history.
Yeah.
It's just a part of who you are.
I suppose many generations have probably gone through moments like this, right? I mean, if you're a family farmer who has multiple generations, your father and your grandfather probably have their own stories of times like this. Yeah. Does that help to know you're not the only one who's gone through it?
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how it is. You roll with the punches and hopefully do better next year. But you know, it can be very rewarding too. You know, it's not all just doom and gloom. It's a good reward. You can kind of reap what you sow, and hopefully you can turn out good and be profitable and try it again in the next year. So.
What brings each of you sort of hope as you move into the later parts of this summer and into the fall? Are there things that make you hopeful about the future?
I mean, it's kind of about a perspective. There's a lot of unknowns, but yet, even like living where we do, it's good here, and we can distance, and you still have everything that you need. I just think you just go on with life, and you focus on the positive and not the negative, and hopefully as things progress, they'll get a vaccine for the virus, which is going to take some time, and just to be patient and hope that they get there sooner than later, but to always just kind of move forward, and life goes on, and you just deal with some of the bad and the good, and everything all blends together, kind of just like farming, I guess you'd say, and you come out in the end hopefully okay. But you know, there's always something to look forward to.
Yeah. What about for you two? Well, you got senior year. That must.
I guess I'm kind of hopeful for that, and I actually won a couple awards through 4-H, which are actually big trips. So I am actually, I'll be going on, it's called National 4-H Conference, and it is actually, it is a youth working conference, and we actually meet with different federal partners about issues that directly affect youth. So I'm guessing coronavirus is going to be one of the topics next year.
Yeah.
And so it's just this big group of people from and it's 5 kids from every state across the nation, and even like a couple come from our different U.S. territories. And so it's just, I'm really hopeful to be able to go to that and talk about topics that affect youth. So I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to go on that trip, and even if I don't, even if they cancel it, because that would be a lot of people from all over, so contact issues with Corona. Even if we don't go, I hope that we'll still have some sort of online version, which I feel 4-H is doing a pretty good job of that. Like, we've already had our Worth County Fair held virtually, and it actually went very good. So even if we aren't able to conduct these events in person, I'm hopeful that at least we'll be able to have some form of them conducted online.
Yeah, that's interesting. Tell me more about the fair online. How did that work?
So I was actually I took charge of organizing the poultry show online. So for the poultry show, our judge that we had for this year, he's older and he has some health complications. So I just created a Google document, and I had all the kids send me photos of their birds. So like side views of each bird, top view, bottom view, and I sent them out photos as examples and how to follow just different rules in the rule book. So they all sent their photos to me, and I organized them in this Google document. And then I sent that out to all of the families and the judge. And then we actually met over Zoom, and the judge announced the results, and each exhibitor was able to talk about their project for a little bit and get to know what the ribbon placement was. And then the judge was also was able to comment on that project about like why he liked the bird, or maybe something they could improve. And so it was basically the same thing as an in-show. All the birds were just judged by photos instead. And then I was also part of the dairy show. The dairy show was only about 10 to 15 kids. So it was a small enough group that we were actually able to have it in person. So we just had it in a big grass field with the cows, and we just kind of all spread out, and we were all wearing masks during the dairy show. So in dairy shows, actually, when you line up your cows, you're supposed to get them as close as possible. So instead of lining them up like a proper show would, we just kind of spread out in this huge field, and we were still able to conduct the show. I know the other animal shows were also conducted virtually by video, so everything went pretty good. And we were able still to show our animals, because I know with a market animal, you can't save that for next year. It's got to go to market. So it was nice being able to show these animals, even though we wouldn't be able to show them next year. So at least we had the opportunity to at least do something this year with our animals.
That's awesome. That's so inventive. Congratulations on spearheading parts of that. That's really cool. Do you have you thought about what your post-high school life might look like? Are you preparing for that right now?
A little bit. I'm kind of looking into different scholarships that I can apply for. My plan is, I know I'm going to Iowa State. I plan on going for an animal science degree with pre-vet track. And after I finish my animal science degree, I plan on entering into pre-vet med, specializing in poultry.
That's so cool. Congratulations. That's great that you have such clarity of what you want to do.
Thanks.
You sound like, because you work with horses as well, that you have a real passion for animals.
Yeah.
Cool. Congrats. Well, Tim, I wanted you to be able to answer what makes you hopeful for the future as you look to the end of the summer and fall.
Well, I guess attitude, people have to have a positive attitude, and, you can find negative in anything, and you can also find positive in everything. If you just keep a good attitude, have a strong faith and family, things have got to look up and get better, and you just, got to have a hope for the future. live in a small rural community, and we love it here, and got a great family, so things look great for us.
I think that's the perfect way to end the interview. Thank you for sitting down and taking the time today. It's really nice to catch up with all three of you, and I'm glad to know that you're in good spirits, and I'm glad to know you're in good health. And maybe I'll see you at Turkey Days this next week for the socially distanced Bad Habits show.
There you go.
I'll talk to you later. I'll see you soon.
All right.
See you soon.
Thanks, Dad.
Next time on Home Again. We hitch a ride with the May family of Stacyville, Iowa, as they prepare for their annual fundraiser fun run, the Broad Trot. Join us next time on Home Again, Conversations from the Heartland.